You're listening to The Other Side of Weight Loss. I'm your host, Karen Martell, transformational nutrition coach and expert in women's weight loss and hormone health. If you are ready to go beyond diet and exercise, then tune in each week to hear from leading experts in psychology, nutrition, and spirituality as we explore the many avenues of what it really takes to lose weight and feel your best. All right, ladies, this is our first Q&A episode on the other side of weight loss. So once a month, I'm going to answer your questions on health, weight, mindset, hormones, and really any other topic. You just ask and I will answer, or at least try to direct you to where you could find the answer if I don't know it. So I'm excited for today. We just set this up only a week ago, so I didn't get a ton of questions in, but I did get, I'd say about 20 or so. So I'm going to answer the ones that I thought would be most relevant to as many people as possible. So if I don't get to your question today, it's not to say that I won't. I'm just trying to get, the ones that I thought that everybody could benefit from, or a lot of people could benefit from hearing the answer to it. So you can submit your questions over at karenmartell.com/podcast, and you will see a little fill form to fill out where you can send me your questions quite easily. So you can check that out at karenmartell.com/podcast. Now, before we get started, I want to let you guys know that I've got an amazing deal on right now with my hormone test kits. Now, if you missed my last episode, I discussed all things hormone testing. And if you are interested in having your hormones tested, I would definitely listen to that episode because I give you the rundown on all the different ways you can have your hormones tested, and even the price point on everything as well. My hormone test kits are saliva hormone test kits. This is an amazing place to start. You can take the test in the comforts of your own home, which is always great. Each kit comes with a 20-minute interpretation session with me. As well, I am now adding a major bonus to those kits, which is with the purchase of your kit, you will not only get that 20-minute session, but you will also get my 30-day hormone detox meal plan with the value of $50. So each kit will come with that, which I think is great. And usually when you order your kits, it literally takes a couple days to get to your house. So it doesn't take long to do it. All right. Let's get to our first Q&A. All right, we have Sherry from Austin, Texas, who says, "Hey Karen, first off, I love your podcast. I have a question for you for your Q&A episode on whether or not you would recommend that I do a ketogenic type diet. I have heard you discuss the benefits of keto and carnivore for a person with insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes, but also have heard you say it's not good for people with thyroid and adrenal issues. Well, I have both hypothyroidism and type 2 diabetes. What diet should I do? Thank you so much for your recommendations, Sherry." All right, Sherry, awesome question, because that's a real toss-up. And I run into this all the time because hypothyroidism and insulin resistance go hand in hand. That's because thyroid hormones are necessary for the body to actually metabolize carbohydrates, as well for the pancreas to properly function. It needs thyroid hormones. So low thyroid hormones can cause a drop in insulin levels. Insulin is the hormone that is needed to take sugar from the blood to different cells throughout the body. So without a proper functioning thyroid, you can actually develop insulin resistance. And so like I said, this is a strong connection here. Many women that are not properly medicated, which is many of you that have hypothyroidism, you're still not up to par on your thyroid because the medication you're taking is at the wrong dose or the wrong kind of medication. And so you're not optimized which will keep you in an insulin resistant or type 2 diabetic state until that thyroid is fixed. Now, you could also, of course, have the type 2 diabetes and the insulin resistance from a poor diet. So this is where it gets tricky, because you're right, Sherry. If you follow a super low carb diet and you're fasting all the time, it's great for correcting insulin resistance, but over time it can tank your adrenals and it can tank your thyroid. So how do we do this? So first and foremost, I want you to make sure that your thyroid is optimized. Are you on the right medication? I have a ton of material on this podcast about thyroid. If you just put into the search bar advanced thyroid series, you'll get 8 episodes of my advanced thyroid series where I go into great detail about optimizing your thyroid and how to do that. And I talk to some of the leading experts out there on thyroid. So that would be a great place to start in order to educate yourself on how to be optimized on thyroid medication and know how to do that. And I've also done, I think, a couple other ones on hypothyroidism that would be worth listening to as well. But basically, you want to be taking your basal body temperature regularly if you have hypothyroidism of any kind, Hashimoto's or just subclinical hypothyroidism, whatever it is, you want to be taking your body temperature, because that will tell you, are you still in a hypothyroid state even though you're on medication? So if you are at a nice, average of 98.2, 98.6 in the afternoon, then it shows us that actually your thyroid is functioning okay, your metabolism's okay, and you're on the right medication. If you're not, then you're going to want to talk to your doctor about that. Now, I prefer and see most women do better on a desiccated thyroid rather than just a T4 medication, which would be Synthroid is one of the names for it. But if it's levothyroxine, which is just T4 only medication, most women do not do well on just T4, because your body needs to convert T4 into T3 in order to utilize that thyroid hormone. And that's where we see a lot of problems lying. This is also why some women, their TSH can actually be in normal range and their T4, but their T3 is low because that conversion isn't happening, which means you're hypothyroid. And a lot of doctors don't look at your free T3 to see whether or not your body's actually converting the T4. I personally was undiagnosed for 10 plus years, who knows how long, but at least 10 plus years of undiagnosed, because my doctor would only look at my TSH and one time she looked at my T4, which were always both in normal range. And it wasn't until my naturopath insisted on testing my free T3 and said, oh my gosh, like, how are you even walking around? It is so low. So I was so hypothyroid and nobody was picking up on it because they were testing me for just T4 and TSH. So, and then ended up for me, I had to be on just straight T3, which is also what some women need, because there's something wrong in that conversion. And I won't get into the details right now, but there's something wrong in that conversion and they have to actually just go straight to the T3, which is what I had to do because I had heavy metal toxicity. So first and foremost, find out, are you up on your medication and are you optimized? Because if you're optimized, then I think that you can go ahead and you can do a ketogenic fasting type diet for a period of a couple of weeks to help correct your insulin resistance and see if in 3 weeks, if your blood sugar starts to stabilize and you feel better, then you can start adding in a couple nights of carb ups in order to feed that thyroid and your adrenals and make sure they don't crash. And keep doing that, which for so many women that works. That rotation of carb cycling, calorie cycling will work and preserve the adrenal system. It's when you're going to, if you start to for instance, go carnivore, or you fast every day and you're only eating 1 or 2 meals every day and you're super low carb because or you've heard that this is such a great way to lose weight. Well, for someone like you, Sherry, if you are not optimized on thyroid medication, or if you've got Hashimoto's and you haven't lowered your antibodies and haven't corrected that inflammation, and you start hammering yourself like that with the no glucose whatsoever, and no matter how you look at it, fasting and really low carb is a stressor. The All of the top fasting professionals out there will say that no matter how you look at it, it is a stress to the system. It raises cortisol. So when we're in that adrenal insufficiency state with hypothyroidism, which is super common, and you're burned out, your adrenals are having problems, your thyroid's not optimized, and then you add that stress of fasting and low carb on top of it, well, you're going to drive yourself down even farther, and you really won't lose any weight. So you have to find that balance of, okay, where do I feel good? And you have to really pay attention to your body signals. Don't listen to everybody else around you and what everybody else is thriving on. I think that is the biggest mistake women make is, oh, well, my friend Janet over here, she lost 50 pounds on a ketogenic fasting diet, so this is what I'm going to do. Well, Janet doesn't have hypothyroidism, so it's a completely different story for her. For somebody that just has insulin resistance with no thyroid problem, absolutely going carnivore, going ketogenic for a period of time and fasting for a period of time will help you to reverse it faster than anything else usually. So totally two different people. You need to fix the thyroid. You also need to support the adrenal system. And that's, for some women, they need to actually go all the way to actually taking cortisol and Cortef. Others need to just be on a really good adrenal supplement of some sort to help support it, some adrenal cortex or something. And then while they're supporting that, they're supporting their thyroid, then they can, like I said, they can get into a state of ketosis. You can even get into ketosis a lot of the time if you're hypothyroid. I know I couldn't. Until my thyroid was optimized, I couldn't actually burn ketones. Like I would be super low carb and my ketone reader would be like, oh, you've got no ketones. And I've seen that a lot with women that are hypothyroid. They can't even burn ketones. They don't even have the metabolic machinery to burn up fat. So optimizing those things and then testing out, okay, how's this working? And if it's not working, going keto with those carb ups, if you're still insulin resistant, then you need to start looking at other things. Like you could maybe do carnivore for a very short period of time, because it usually works very, very quickly to bust people out of that insulin resistant state. You could take things like berberine, works really well, works very similarly to metformin. You can take metformin. I'm actually that's one drug that I'm okay with, is metformin, because it works well for insulin resistance. So, those would be the things that you would consider if diet changes didn't work. But like I said, most women, if they do carb cycling and, a couple days a week, no more, of some fast, not long fast, like till, 16, 18-hour fasts. You're not going to be doing like a 24-hour fast. I don't think that would be a good idea, or a 36-hour fast or 3-day fast until you're, fully optimized and you feel great. That would be really hard on the system. So, but most women, couple days a week of fasting, carb cycling throughout, like 2 or 3 nights of carb cycling, and test that out. You can also buy your own blood glucose monitor. And we're going to get to that in the next question, but buying your blood glucose monitor is such a great way to monitor what's working for you. So, you do a carb up and the next morning, check your fasting blood glucose. Did it go up? You could do carb tolerance testing to see what carbs work better for your body. All of these things will help you to figure out what is best for you, and then be open to that changing, because once that insulin resistance fixed, you may do better on just a paleo-based diet with occasional intermittent fasting, because you're just sensitive to hypothyroidism, have sensitive adrenals, and you might just do better to not be super low carb, but moderate carb, and eating that way for the unforeseeable future. All right. Okay, I hope that helps, Sherry. Let me know if you have more questions. The next one wants to stay anonymous. Asks, why is my morning blood glucose so high? My hemoglobin A1C is 5.2, which is very good. And I'll explain what that is. But my morning glucose is 112. All right. So interesting enough, I wanted to answer this one because I actually had one, if not two people actually in my membership group who recently asked me the same question. So I thought, okay, this is something that maybe happens to more people than I realize. It also happened to me, which I think is just so funny because I've been testing my blood glucose for years. And when it changed, when my hormones changed about a year ago, no, it's more than that now, year and a half ago, I always had this like beautiful fasting morning blood glucose level that, was perfect. A doctor was always very impressed. My hemoglobin A1C was like 4.9. Hemoglobin A1C is a blood test that your doctor can do that gives you a 2 to 3 month look at what your blood glucose is doing. So anything that is higher than 5.6 is considered insulin resistant or type 2 diabetic. And then anything under it is considered okay. I think it should be under 5.2, and most functional doctors, I do believe, think it should be under 5.2 as well. So she's on the cusp, right? But so this happened to me where suddenly, when my hormones started to go wacky on me, I was waking up in the mornings with this really high blood glucose level. And I was like, what the heck? Am I suddenly insulin resistant? Because I was still eating very well. And I was like, what's going on? And I was ashamed. I was like, oh my gosh, how is this possibly happening? I've never had high blood glucose in the morning. Now it wasn't, it was still under 100, I think it was. No, I'm in a different measurement than the United States is. So here I was 5.2, and anything over 5.6, 5.7 is considered insulin resistant or type 2 diabetic if you get higher. So it was still in range, but barely, like very barely. I was almost insulin resistant. And I was like, what is going on? And when I had my hormones checked, I saw that my morning cortisol level was through the roof. And after this, I went and had my hemoglobin A1C rechecked, and it was still in normal range. And so it was confirmed that I had what is called the dawn phenomenon, which is when your cortisol is high in the morning, and it brings when your cortisol raises, so does your blood glucose. So to get me out of bed in the morning, basically, it was coming on much too high, higher than it should have been. And it was off range when I had it tested. So I had confirmed it via the saliva test that I did. So my guess is that this woman is going through the same thing, and same with the lady that was in my membership group. She had a similar thing too. She knew that she wasn't insulin resistant and was still getting these high morning, not all the time, but high morning blood glucose readings. It can also be from having just a bad night's sleep. So you might wake up on some mornings and have it be really high, and notice, okay, or ask yourself, how was your sleep the night before? Because when I've had people test their fasting blood glucose for me, and I'll tell them, always do more than one reading, like give me like 5 readings. And every time there's this abnormally high one amongst normal ones, I'll say, how was your sleep that night? And I always tell them, make sure you write that down. And they always had a bad sleep, and that's why it's gone up. So it will actually raise your blood glucose when you've had a bad night's sleep. This is the dawn phenomenon. So it doesn't mean you are insulin resistant. And this is why it's important to, if you're getting these high readings, to really be mindful of it. Go and get checked with your doctor. Go have that A1C check to make sure that, okay, yes, you are not, or are you insulin resistant or type 2 diabetic? So you really want to rule that out when you see that. And then you'll know, okay, my cortisol's coming on a little high in the morning. And that's when you would put into practice maybe a lowering of cortisol when you first wake up, which is you might want to meditate in the morning, just relax, take it easy, don't go, don't go work out. Just take some time to bring that down. What I started doing, because I love coffee and coffee will also raise cortisol, when I would wake up in the morning, I went to decaf with just a little caffeine so I wouldn't get a headache. And then I started to put in medicinal mushroom powder into my bulletproof coffee in the morning. And that's the other thing I always have done is a bulletproof coffee, because that will also help mitigate the adrenaline cortisol response first thing in the morning from the caffeine. The fat actually slows that down. So, doing that and putting in some calming medicinal mushrooms. So reishi is a good one. I put some ashwagandha. I'm doing that right now. I'm doing ashwagandha, chaga, and what's the other one? Chaga and cordyceps. It's a mix of all of those. And I put that in there to help also with that cortisol response and making sure my coffee isn't adding fuel to that fire. So consider making those little adjustments and then watch and see and hope that that is all you need to do. Otherwise, it's not horrible. And what you can do is you can fast and see and just test that blood glucose every half hour to an hour and see how long does it take to go back to normal. I did that as well. And it only took, I think it was 2 hours before it went back down to normal fasting blood glucose level. So you can monitor, okay, how long is this lasting? Like, do I have really high cortisol all like for hours and hours in the morning? Because then you really want to be taking something then at that point to help blunt that response a little bit. So it brings it down, like holy basil, phosphatidylserine are both really good ones to help calm that cortisol down a little bit. Okay, so that's that one. Okay. Hi, Karen. Thanks for answering our questions. When I eat low carb, I tend to wake up at 3 a.m. and have a hard time falling back to sleep. However, if I have some carbs during dinner, I generally sleep through the night and wake up a little after 6. The problem is when I eat carbs during dinner, I can gain weight. Gain weight overnight. Eating low carb helps me to lose weight. Is there a reason for the interrupted sleep eating low carb? All right, great question there. I think I've actually heard from many people like over the years who go ketogenic, low carb, fasting, say the same thing, that it causes insomnia and they don't sleep well. So it is a common thing. And if you Google it, you'll find so many keto forums where people are going, oh my gosh, I can't sleep. So this goes back to what I was saying before, where with the thyroid question is, remember always that fasting and low carb is a stressor. It raises cortisol, it raises adrenaline. And so that is what is happening. You are basically, your body's sensitive to it, and it is keeping that cortisol and adrenaline surging in the system, and it's creating issues with your sleep. Now, she says that she gains weight if she doesn't eat low carb, right? Or when she eats carbs, she gains weight overnight. That is water retention. You don't gain a pound overnight because you ate a sweet potato. So when you are chronically low carb or fasting, your body will lose a lot of water weight. I've seen women lose like 8 pounds of water weight within a couple of days of going low carb, because some women just, they pack on the water weight. And this is usually, it's only a couple of pounds. So eating that carb at nighttime, it doesn't, like I said, it's not making you gain a pound of fat overnight. That would take time to do that, right? And also, if you're only eating a sweet potato a couple days a week and you gain weight from that, like real weight from that, that's telling me that you are way too carb sensitive. And then what else is going on? Are you then insulin resistant? Are you type 2 diabetic? Why is your body? Because you should be able to eat some carbohydrates. You want that metabolic flexibility. That is healthy. Most people should not gain weight when they do that unless they are really insulin resistant individuals. So that's a bit of a red flag, right? It could be that you've been too low carb for too long and you've become overly sensitive, in which case you want to slowly add in those carbs over time, because your goal should always be metabolic flexibility, not ketosis 24/7. That's not a healthy goal. It is when you're trying to correct an issue like insulin resistance and you want to be in ketosis while you heal. But as soon as possible, you want to start cycling those carbs in and out of the diet so that you become metabolically flexible. That is how we would have been as hunter-gatherers. Always remember that. Like, always go back to that. We could burn ketones as a means of survival. It wasn't the preferred source of fuel in the system, like many people say, and this will probably piss off a lot of the hardcore ketoers out there, but it was a backup system so that we wouldn't starve. Your body built that in over time so that if there was a lack of food, it could burn your own fat stores for fuel. And when you've got a lot of fat on your body, this is great. This works amazing. You're burning up your fat stores. But over time, the body says, oh, well, we must be in a famine because we've been in ketosis for a long time. So let's hold on to that fat. And I see this time and time and time again. And I talk about it lots because I think that it's really important to get through everyone's head, because ketogenic diets are the most popular diet, I think, in the world right now. So it's really important to understand that it should be used therapeutically for a period of time, but then you need to start putting those carbohydrates back in as soon as you can. Men, on the other hand, they actually do much better than women long-term on ketosis. This is because men were meant to just spread their seed everywhere, right? Women, we had to carry the baby. We had to nourish ourselves, keep ourselves as plump as possible at that time, which was never very plump, right? But that was our survival. That was so that we could bear children, breastfeed. We needed to have fat on our body. So if there was a famine, if there was not a lot of food around and your body's in a state of ketosis all the time, what's going to happen? It's going to shut down fertility. And this is a proven thing, actually. There was, I'm going to forget his name, some research that was done on women's follicular stimulating hormone and how it actually, in the state of ketosis for a long time, actually brought it down, which is your fertility, right? So is how you get pregnant, the follicular stim. If that goes down, you're not going to get pregnant. So it actually showed that it went down in women. And in men, testosterone goes up when they're in ketosis. So not fair, I know, but this is evolution. So let's go back to the original question. Why are you not sleeping well? Well, yes, you're right. The cortisol and the adrenaline, it's a stressor. And so you're being hard on your body. That's a sign that it's too much for your system. You don't want to be raising cortisol and adrenaline like that every single night and then not sleeping, because then your insulin is going to go up. Your blood sugar can become dysregulated. You could have that high fasting morning blood glucose when you don't sleep well. So you can start to see this pattern, this connection between these questions a little bit. But so just take that. Please listen to your body. Your body's telling you that is too much and that you do well with some carbohydrates, which most women do. I always tell women, if you're going to eat the carbs, you got to eat them at nighttime. That's probably the best time, because it does help to sleep. You can also use, besides just keeping up with that sweet potato or some sort of a carb at nighttime, at dinner time, You can also start to use the phosphatidylserine and the holy basil will help with the adrenaline, the cortisol at nighttime and help you sleep better, because phosphatidylserine will block cortisol. Holy basil will calm the system down, including that adrenaline response. So both of those are great for anybody with insomnia. So taking those will help block it and sleep better. And then taking progesterone cream. I did a great episode with Dr. Michael Platt on adrenaline dominance. And he says for people that have that adrenaline rush at nighttime and aren't sleeping very well, to take progesterone cream before you go to bed. And I really find that that helps me. If I ever wake up for some reason at like the 2 and 4 a.m. window, which I think a lot of women get that, where you wake up and you can't fall back to sleep, that's your cortisol coming on, or your adrenaline. If you've got really low cortisol, you'll be pumping on adrenaline. And so I'll actually get up and I'll eat something. I know that sounds strange, but I will, because I know that my blood sugar's gone up. I can actually feel my stomach. It feels like I'm hungry. And this is blood sugar, right? So I'll eat like a piece of cheese or something. I'll rub progesterone cream on my body, and I'll take a magnesium, and I can get back to bed. So doing something like that some people need to eat a little snack right before bed so that their blood glucose stays stable throughout the night, and use that progesterone cream, and that can help blunt the adrenaline response. So both of those little tricks were Dr. Michael Platt's, and personally, I find that they work really well. So phosphatidylserine, holy basil, progesterone cream, those are like some of my 3 top recommendations for women these days. And then keeping up with those carbs and not worrying about, a few pounds of weight gain, because it is just water weight. Always keep that in mind. And if you do actually, like, over time, you've gained 5 pounds or 10 pounds because you've eaten, a couple sweet potatoes in a week, then we know that you need to fix your metabolism, and you have probably done some damage with excessive fasting and excessive low carb, and you need to heal the system. All right. So that is it for today, ladies. If you have questions for our next Q&A, which will be coming up in June, I think 3rd week of June, be sure to send them in. That's at KarenMartel.com/podcast. You can fill out the questionnaire form. Stay tuned next week for my interview with Stacey Robbins, an author, amazing woman. She's just so lovely. We talk a lot about Hashimoto's, but we just talk about the whole weight loss journey. This woman lost 100 pounds. She's hilarious. I just loved this conversation. There's something in it for all of us. I think we did talk for like 2 hours when we did it. The interview is not that long, but her and I talked for 2 hours and just really connected with one another. So that's next week's interview with Stacey Robbins. So be sure to tune into that. All right, ladies, have a great day wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you next time. I hope you enjoyed today's show. New episodes come out every Thursday, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of them. You can also find me at KarenMartel.com, and you can get free recipes and weight loss tips by following me on Instagram and Facebook at Karen Martel Nutrition.